True crime fans know it takes a special, vicious combination of human elements to make a serial killer. However, it takes another combination of system failures to keep a serial killer on the streets. Going beyond the simple miscues and lack of communication between law enforcement organizations, failures can also plague organizations that predators use to access their victims. This is Below the Salt. All right, let's go ahead and get things started. How's it going?
Doing all right.
Yeah, doing okay.
Chilly.
Chilly. Oh yeah, it's a little cold in the old basement. The below the salt basement is what we'll call it. It's leap day today, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
So we're
So
dropping
this doesn't actually exist.
Yeah. So this is an episode that exists in the space between the spaces. I can't. And our dog agrees. Very cool. All right. So have you heard of Arthur Gary Bishop?
Yes.
You have?
But I don't know a lot.
You don't know a lot. Okay.
No, but the name is familiar
Okay.
to me.
Well, he's our monster of the week.
Excellent.
He was born in Hinckley, Utah in 1951.
Okay, remind me where Hinckley is.
Hinckley is a tiny desert town with currently less than 700 residents.
Nice.
So very, very small. It's 100 miles southwest of Salt Lake City.
Oh,
in
that's
Millard
actually
County.
not too far away.
Yeah, it's not as far away as you'd think. It's in Millard County.
Cool.
It's on that little stretch between Salt Lake and everything else in the world. Millard County is kind of a deserty county. There's not a whole lot going on there. Tourists are really scarce, and locals tend to just scratch their living from the sun-baked soil. Arthur, in 1951, seemed to be a model son to devout Mormon parents. And even under intense scrutiny of later investigations, he never raised the specter of being abused by his parents.
Interesting.
He never, like, even when it would have been perfectly okay for him to admit it, he never said that they abused him.
Interesting.
So, that is
just
interesting.
Even because of your little intro, that is one of the serial killer soup ingredients.
It is one. Yeah, that's very often a thing. But there is something that might make you think, oh, maybe something's up with the family.
All right, interesting.
Later on.
Cool.
His younger brother, Douglas Bishop, was born in 1956. And his brother idolized him, apparently, when they were kids. Not a whole lot is known about them. Of course, reporting in the 50s, and even when most of the body of this story takes place in the 80s, the reporting is not as strong as stuff we have today.
Okay.
However, 30 years after they were born, of course, the public would find out that these brothers have a little bit more in common than just their family name. Arthur was an honor student and a proud Eagle Scout, as am I. Hey, look at that.
Cool.
Something in common with a serial killer. That's good. Love hearing that stuff. An anonymous high school classmate of his recalled that he was a geek, rarely, if ever, finding someone who would accept the rare offer of a date. Now, being a geek in the 50s and 60s, it was a little bit more, what's the word?
A little
ostracizing.
harder to get by.
Yeah, they didn't have the internet to share
No,
to
exactly,
share with other geeks,
We're, loud and proud nerds here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, in this house we stand nerds.
Yeah.
So.
And it's like totally fine. So.
Yeah, and back then you'd get beat up a lot.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So he was very much on that scale of things. His election to serve as the business manager for the student council was not an indication of his popularity. His classmate recalled it was a tradition that went on to vote a nerd into the student council as a joke to humble the social elite during the coming year.
Sad.
So he was the target of some pretty complex persecution there.
Yeah.
But there was never any criminal anything as far as we know during that time.
Okay, so a geek, but a normal teen.
As far as we know.
Okay.
Yeah. In 1969, he graduated from high school, and he went on an LDS mission to the Philippines. And actually, that's a place that's a popular. It's not like you get to choose where you go, but it's a place that they send a lot of missionaries.
Yeah.
To, because it's just particularly they get a lot of converts when they send missionaries there. When he came home, He enrolled at Stevens Henniker College in Salt Lake.
Okay.
And completed the school's accounting course with top-notch grades. So he went into accounting. So yeah, definitely.
Just to talk about accounting, and I start yawning.
Yeah, you start yawning.
So.
Ooh, man. Good night. Sleepy time. So yeah, doesn't exactly scream serial killer quite yet, does he?
Nah.
Well, other than the like.
Well, just because we know a lot about serial killers, it's easy to be like, well, of course it's somebody that you don't expect. So in that sense, yes. But no, yeah, there's not anything. There's no red flags yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so existing side by side with this somewhat by the numbers Utah existence, there was definitely a darker side to Arthur, something that would never be betrayed by his public record or his family or friends at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur had gotten involved with the eternally horrific practice of child pornography.
Great.
He later noted that he had nurtured fantasies, elaborating on them over time until the fantasies alone were not enough.
So is this gonna be one of those episodes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Content warning.
Prepare yourself for a freight train of content warning here.
Great.
When Arthur crossed this line between fantasy and child pornography into active pedophilic predation, it's unclear. We don't really know. But years later, scores of Utah parents would complain of Bishop molesting their children, but none had come forward until after he was caught.
Wow.
As far as we know. It's entirely possible that they did come forward and it just went away because of how things worked back in these days. And it was just... The system
super
worked
shady.
In favor of the predators, which is just like... I don't understand. Like, it's hard for me to understand.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Arthur's first brush with the law didn't have anything to do with sex crimes.
Mm-hmm.
In 1978, he was accused of embezzling $8,714 from a used car dealership where he had worked as a bookkeeper for the last year and a half. His family and friends were stunned. But because he seemed like such an up-and-up guy. He was already into child porn by this time, so he wasn't so up-and-up. But Arthur seemed prepared to take his punishment, probably because he considered himself lucky to have only been caught for a white-collar crime, and they hadn't searched his house or found child porn.
Yeah.
So that's my personal theory on this. I can't say exactly why he pled guilty as charged. Pleaded guilty as charged, which we discovered actually the other day. Both of them were okay.
Thing.
Pleaded is the correct way, but pled, people say it enough that it's considered,
It's considered correct.
Ubiquitous and correct, yeah.
Even though it isn't.
Well, I mean, that's kind of how English goes.
Yeah, we had a fight about it.
We did. It was really rough. There were objects thrown. No, just kidding.
Don't joke about that.
Oh, I was meant you threw objects at me.
Yeah, don't joke about that.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. No one threw anything, and it wasn't even an argument. We just looked it up and tried to prove each other wrong. All right. So he got a 5-year suspended jail sentence. So he didn't actually have to serve time. In return,
he must not have been that good at embezzling, though.
Well, he only stole $8,000. I mean, it was in the 70s.
Yeah, 70s, 8,000. I feel like is a fine amount, but still.
Yeah. The reason why he got a suspended jail sentence is because he promised full restitution, that he'd give the money back.
Okay.
Or work off the money, you know. Then he skipped out on his parole and dropped out of sight. Into the night, gone.
That's what innocent people do.
Yeah, skip out on their parole. Yeah.
Innocent of other things, you know, like
exactly.
If you just say you're gonna do it and then you disappear, like there's more going on.
Right. That's definitely how it looks for sure. Sorry, I was taking a quick drink. Everyone chill. Okay. So he skipped out. He would spend the next 5 years living under pseudonyms, finding work where he could, and stealing money when it suited him.
Okay.
The arrest warrant that was issued for his probation violation would never be served. So they never.
So they just never got him for this.
Exactly. And the next arrest warrant issued for Arthur Gary Bishop would be for murder.
Oh.
So.
That escalated.
Yeah. Embezzling to murder, there's a few steps in between, that's for sure. But he didn't run far. When he went into hiding, a simple name change was enough to throw the police off of his track. He remained in Salt Lake City and changed his name to Roger W. Downs.
Okay.
He used this name to join the Big Brother program.
Oh my God.
Placing himself in close proximity to boys in need of a sympathetic father figure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, that's something predators do.
Yeah.
They will latch themselves to organizations where they will get access to children.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Whether it's Big Brother, Big Sister, or church.
Yeah.
Or
church is a big one here.
Church is a big one here. There's a lot of instances, especially recently. It seems like every week there's some story about some young men's leader or a bishop or someone who was caught molesting children.
Seriously,
like, there needs
to be.
Yes,
even like schools.
Yeah, schools are a big one. Daycares, for sure.
The world is garbage.
Yeah, it's scary out there. Keep your kids close.
Mm-hmm.
Years later, a spokesman for the Big Brother Big Sister organization admitted to receiving tips that Downs, Arthur, had molested at least 2 children while enrolled with their program, and it had been reported. But neither of those children were his actual assigned little brother.
Mm-hmm.
He would target other kids, which is smart because
I was gonna say a horrible thing to say, but that's the smart way to do it.
Because you're disassociating. You're putting a degree of separation.
Yeah.
These accusations were reported by Big Brother Big Sister to the police, who did
nothing.
Absolutely nothing. That's correct.
Well, shit.
Yeah. So, way to go, Salt Lake Police. You did a great job. And it's just like, I don't know. At least look into it. You know.
Right.
Like at least be like.
Did you really just do
charges.
nothing?
Anyway.
They're like, oh great, here's a report of pedophilia. Just put it on the pile.
Or here's another possibility: Big Brother Big Sister just said that they reported it to the police to cap deniability.
Ugh.
So either way, the predator wins. Great job, everyone. Everyone pat themselves on the back.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're skipping ahead to 1979.
Okay.
4-year-old Alonzo Daniels.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah, just prepare yourself because the first victim is 4 years old. Was playing in the courtyard of his Salt Lake City apartment complex on October 14th, 1979, when he vanished without a trace.
Hate it.
It's 1979. Parents aren't as paranoid about their kids yet.
No.
You're playing in the courtyard of your apartment building.
Yeah, one of his parents is probably not that far away, you know?
Oh, trust me, they're closer than you would even think.
Oh, no.
His worried mother called on relatives to search the complex and the surrounding streets to no avail. Police were summoned, and they searched door to door in the apartment complex. They came across a man named Roger Downs. Almost immediately.
No, and they saw him.
Almost immediately they went there. Why? Because his apartment was just across the hall from the Daniels apartment.
I hate it.
Downs, of course, denied any knowledge of the boy's whereabouts, and the search continued. The police officers had no clue. They just interviewed the perpetrator, and that 4-year-old Alonzo was already dead. So here's your content warning, because there are a few details here. Arthur had lured Alonzo from the courtyard into his apartment with the promise of candy, and then sexually assaulted him in his living room. Arthur panicked when the boy began to cry for his mother, so he clubbed him with a hammer.
Oh my God.
When this failed to stop the crying, Arthur carried him into the bathroom and drowned him in an already filled bathtub.
Oh my God. So he was planning on killing him.
Absolutely.
He wasn't.
No, it wasn't just a crime of opportunity.
And then panicked.
No.
He was planning on killing him.
Yes,
Ugh.
That is correct. Afterward, he stuffed the corpse into a large cardboard box and carried it out to his car, right past Alonzo's mother as she was pacing the courtyard and calling out his name.
Oh my God. That's one of the worst things I've ever heard.
Yeah. By late afternoon, Salt Lake County's search and rescue team had joined the hunt for Alonzo Daniels. Hundreds of civilians pitched in over the next few days, including students and faculty from the University of Utah, go University of Utah, way to pitch in, and members of a local Teamsters union. That night, Arthur drove Alonzo's body to Cedar Fort, which is about 20 miles southwest of Salt Lake City, and buried Daniels in an unmarked grave in the desert.
That's horrible.
Returning home, Arthur said that he felt a mixture of emotions. He actually offered all this information to the police. At first, he said he was a little bit sickened by what he had done, and he was terrified of being arrested. And third, and most importantly, he was very much excited. He knew that he was going to do it again if he couldn't find a way to stop himself.
Ew.
Yeah.
You know, like, whenever they say, like, oh, it's gonna happen again if I can't find a way to stop myself, I just feel like they're an even bigger piece of shit, because there are so many ways to stop yourself from doing something like that again.
You could put yourself into a program. You could
just
confess to police,
get arrested, and deal with it, but you won't have the opportunity to do it again.
There's a pretty horrific option of just
killing yourself.
Like, you know, like,
yeah.
If you feel like you're going to, you
know, molest and murder a child,
yeah.
Go ahead and kill yourself.
But like
I
at
don't
least
care.
like
do it.
Go to police so the parents can like have some closure. Like,
yeah.
You're a monster.
Yeah, you don't actually care about stopping yourself.
No, you don't. You might care in kind of a broader sense, but you don't care enough.
Because you've been taught that you maybe should.
Yeah, exactly.
Just by society, like you know you shouldn't do it. Yeah. So you're like, oh, I wish I could stop, but you don't really.
Okay, so this next part is, I hate to say it's worse, but it feels worse.
Okay.
So brace yourself. In the year after he killed Alonzo Daniels, Arthur sought a less dangerous but just as sickening outlet for his urge to kill. Instead of children, he decided he would kill puppies.
Oh.
He adopted 15 to 20 puppies from
God.
Salt Lake animal shelters over the next 13 months and used them as surrogates for victim children.
Jesus.
Yeah. He said, quote unquote, "It was so stimulating," he later told Detective Don Bell. "A puppy whines just like Alonzo did. I would get frustrated at the whining. I would hit them with hammers or drown them or strangle them." Bishop's neighbors never seemed to notice this activity, but even if they had, cruelty to animals is just a very small misdemeanor in the 80s, and nothing compared with kidnapping and murder of a child.
No.
However, puppies did not satiate his urge to kill. He still continued to molest children sporadically, using charm or threats to prevent them from talking.
Ew.
So, this is the kind of person that we're dealing with today. He is the most fucked up monster.
Is he dead?
I'm trying to remember. I think he's still alive. I think he's still in prison.
Ew.
I will get to that. Actually, we'll get to that. I actually wrote this a while back, and I just do not remember.
Okay.
But he, spoiler alert, does get caught, which is good.
Good.
Okay, so we're fast forwarding 13 months to November 8th, 1980. 11-year-old Kim Peterson. Kim is a boy. Met Bishop at a Salt Lake City roller skating rink. They talked about skates. So he's hanging out at roller skating rinks. It's not like he's like trying not to get near children. Like he's actively predating children.
Stupid motherfucker.
They talked about skates. Kim mentioned that he would like to sell his skates and buy a new pair, and Arthur acted interested, telling Peterson that he would pay $35 for his old skates. Peterson left home with the skates the next day, telling his parents he'd found a buyer. No names were mentioned, but he promised to come home straight afterward after the transaction was concluded, and he never came home.
That's horrible.
Yeah. Another police search began, including a canvass of skaters from the rink where Peterson had met his presumed abductor on Saturday. Several witnesses recalled a youth of Peterson's description talking to a 25 to 35-year-old man, full-faced, with glasses, wearing blue jeans and an army-style jacket or parka. Two of the witnesses actually agreed to be hypnotized to get a better picture, right? And the session produced further details. He had dark hair and bushy eyebrows and weighed about 200 pounds. One skater claimed that the man had driven away in a silver Chevy Camaro with an out-of-state license plate, maybe from Nevada. Nothing really comes of that, unfortunately. Police saw no similarity to their suspect in Roger Downs, who was living in an apartment complex several blocks from Kim Peterson's home. They questioned Roger Downs yet again, but made no connections to the Daniels case. Nothing in the bland 29-year-old's demeanor let them know that he had bludgeoned Kim Peterson to death and buried his corpse near Alonzo's just outside Cedar Fort.
Gross.
Another 11 months pass. Bishop was browsing through a local supermarket On October 20th, 1981, Bishop later told detectives that he saw 4-year-old Danny Davis fumbling with the gumball machine in the front of the market, trying to get a treat without paying, so he was reaching up and trying to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Bishop offered him candy, but Danny refused because he wasn't supposed to talk to strangers.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur rose to leave the store and then glanced back and saw that Danny was following him towards the exit. He waited for the boy and then led him out towards the parking lot. Danny's grandmother, who had gone with him to the store, couldn't find him when she finished her shopping. Employees and customers joined in a search, but they were already too late. Several shoppers recalled a boy at the gumball machine, assisted by a smiling young man. Once again, as in the Daniels case, searchers fanned out through the nearby desert and mountains. Sheriff's deputies dragged ponds, searched roadside ditches, poked through garbage, and in 100 alleyways, but never found any sign of Danny. A $20,000 reward for information brought no takers. Calls for help to the FBI, found children. Oh wait, hang on. I think there's a typo. Calls for help to the FBI, Child Find and National Crime Information Center produced no useful leads.
Mm-hmm.
Roger Downs lived a half a block away from the market, where Danny had disappeared, and again had nothing to share with the police when they knocked on his door for a third time.
Jesus.
Again, the questions were routine, and again, no one realized that the same clueless neighbor had lived in close proximity to the vanished victims, Alonzo Daniels, Kim Peterson, and Danny Davis.
Nobody had those good detective skills back then.
Guess not. Someone does eventually in the story, which is nice.
Good.
It's a newer person who comes on the case.
Okay.
Arthur had killed Danny Davis in the same way he'd killed his other two victims, and the next day made yet another trip to Cedar Fort to bury him alongside the other two.
Mm-hmm.
Roger Downs was not tempted by the public reward. He had money to spare from his latest embezzlement scheme.
Oh my God.
Several weeks before the Davis kidnapping, bookkeeper Lynn E. Jones had gone to work at a Salt Lake City ski shop. When he failed to return from lunch one day, the proprietor found $10,000 missing from the store, along with Jones's personnel file.
Wow.
Which is...
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he got that money and he took off. While local police found themselves without answers, state legislatures were galvanized by the spate of disappearances. When 3-year-old Rachel Runyon, from one of your episodes, throwback, was kidnapped from a school playground in August 1982, the same time period, the public outcry began to be deafening. First-degree murder was obviously, of course, already a capital crime in Utah, but legislators added a new statute on child abduction, ranked among the strictest in the nation, and it still is to this day.
Well, that's good. Good for us.
It's one of the reasons why Brian David Mitchell, who kidnapped Elizabeth Smart, is in prison for life.
Good.
Yep.
But not fucking Wanda Barzee. We'll talk about that in another episode.
Yeah, we're actually gonna. I think later this year we're gonna hit Elizabeth Smart.
Yeah.
So, get ready for that one. Depending on the circumstances of a given kidnapping, convicted abductors faced mandatory 5, 10, or 15-year prison terms for their crime, which is the strongest in the nation at that time. Investigators soon dismissed any link between Rachel Runyon's murder and the vanished boys in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, definitely not the same MO.
Not the same MO. Different. Rachel Runyon's suspect was black, and these boys.
And they find her body.
They find her body
just within days.
Yes. Within, I think, a few weeks. So there was, they quickly dismissed that. They're just very, very different. But in the era of satanic panic, rumors circulated of an occult motive in the crimes. Ooh. But police dismissed those. Okay, so first of all, it's ridiculous that they come up with an occult motive.
I know, it's so stupid.
But the reason why police dismiss it is even dumber than the reason why.
So even though they ended up doing the correct thing,
they did it for the wrong reason.
For a horrible reason.
The police dismissed the rumors of satanic panic murders because, quote unquote, none of the missing boys had been kidnapped within a week of Halloween.
Oh my good Lord.
Can you believe that? It's like, oh, well, okay, I couldn't have been.
Can't be satanic because it's not
if it
October.
Not near Halloween.
Like, what the hell? Oh my God.
Yeah. And it's funny because I believe Danny Downs was kidnapped on October 20th. It's not like that's pretty close to Halloween too. Like,
but it's not within a week.
You can't keep a kid alive for 10 days to sacrifice him on Halloween. Like, if that's what you're gonna go by, like, this is absolute dumbfuckery is going on right here. It's just like, wow. Way to go, everyone. Like, the fact that it came up at all is ridiculous, but the fact that they dismissed it for that reason is even worse. The Satanism theory was officially considered dead when October 1982 passed, and there were no new child abductions.
That's the stupidest thing.
Isn't it, though?
Yeah.
Okay, so the case was cold by mid-1983.
Mm-hmm.
Nearly 2 years had passed since the last disappearance in Salt Lake City. But, you know, the serial killers can never really stop.
Not for long.
Although, Green River killer Gary Ridgway got married and didn't kill for like 15 years.
Yeah, so did BTK.
BTK stopped killing because his wife kind of caught him doing something that she thought was
doing
weird.
Some gross shit.
So he stopped murdering.
But then he started again.
And so did Green River.
Yeah.
So, it's in there.
Yeah.
It's just, if you can get this bad, you tend to stay this bad.
Yeah.
All right. It's June 23rd, 1983.
All right.
Troy Ward is celebrating his 6th birthday. Permitted to play by himself at a park near his home, Troy was supposed to meet a family friend at 4 p.m. at a predetermined street corner. That friend would then drive him home where his presents and birthday cake would be waiting for him.
So, really fast.
Yeah.
Like, clearly parents weren't quite as paranoid of stuff
about
stuff back then as they were now.
Come home when the street lights
like,
turn.
were kids more responsible? Because I feel like I know a ton of kids these days who would not be able to just meet a family friend at a corner at 4 p.m.
A 6-year-old too?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like maybe the fact that they were let out and just to go play and do whatever in the neighborhood until the street lights came on might have made them a little more responsible. Or maybe they knew their parents would, like, literally beat them if they didn't do what they were said.
I don't know. That just was interesting to me.
Yeah, it's weird.
Anyways, continue.
Yeah. Times have certainly changed, and I personally say for the better.
I think so, too. I'm going to keep a good eye on our kids one day.
Great idea. I appreciate that.
I'm not just going to let them go out and play by themselves.
Yeah, because shit like this happens. At 4 p.m., there was no sign of Troy at the street corner. His would-be chauffeur drove on to the Ward residence, expecting that Troy had just walked home, but he had not returned. Police were called at once, and patrol officers searched a grid of streets around the park. One witness, as related in the press, recalled a boy of Troy's description leaving the scene with a man on foot a few minutes prior to 4 p.m. The man and the boy had seemed at ease with one another, and the witnesses assumed they were father and son.
Yeah, understandably.
Yeah, why would you assume differently? In fact, that man was Arthur Gary Bishop, and his 4th victim was now gone without a trace. At home, Bishop repeated his grim ritual sexual assault and murder. He later told detectives that he considered freeing Troy, just letting him go, but a last-minute threat to report the assault from Troy changed his mind.
Poor little boy.
Afterward, instead of driving to Cedar Fort, Arthur drove east and buried Troy in the Twin Peaks Wilderness area. It had gone so easily for him, he didn't even bother waiting an entire month for his next victim.
Ugh.
Graham Cunningham, 13 years old, was looking forward to a weekend camping trip on Thursday, July 14th, 1983.
So he had a pretty wide
age range.
Yeah. 4
usually
to...
they tend to keep it a little tighter than this.
Yeah, interesting.
4, 11, 4, 6, and now 13.
Okay, interesting.
But he totally fucked this one up. Thank
good.
God. Graham Cunningham is 13 years old. He's ready to go on a camping trip. It is Thursday, July 14th, 1983. His gear is packed, and the adventure was his sole topic of conversation as the time for his departure approached. If he was troubled by the disappearance of Troy Ward 3 weeks earlier, he did not mention it. Why would he be worried, though? He wasn't going to be camping alone. He'd be with a classmate and an adult chaperone that went by the name of Roger Downs.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Yep.
Ew.
So
he was gonna actually like try and get a boy that people knew he was with this time, though.
I think the opportunity was too good for him.
Okay.
And he didn't want to pass it up. And he didn't have that same mindset where he used when he was in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, where he would molest the kids that weren't directly attached to him. So he went into
mistake
berserker
number one.
Yeah, he went into
It was
berserker
his
mode.
like with Ted Bundy.
Like Ted Bundy went into, like BTK went into, a lot of them start making mistakes in the berserker mode, and that's why they get caught. Graham, of course, never made the camp out. He vanished from his neighborhood without a trace. The disappearance made statewide news, and Roger Downs himself came to the Cunningham home to offer any help that lay within his power. I'm under the impression boys just don't go with random men that are there on camping trips unless they're involved in a church activity.
That's what I was thinking. It's church or scouts. The parents might not know him well, but know his name, and
they know that he's a scout leader.
Yeah.
So that's my guess as to why he and the one other boy were going camping with a strange man.
Yeah.
And that's probably why Roger Downs came, is because he was in their ward.
Yeah.
And
which I guess
he also was supposed to have contact with him later that day.
Yeah. Gross. Okay. Ugh.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Later, Roger Downs would tell detectives, "I wanted to help her," he said. "I just didn't know how to tell her that I killed her son."
Ugh.
Yeah, it's...
Liar, liar, liar.
Yeah.
I just don't believe any of that ever. Like I said before, it's not true.
Yeah, it's not. If you actually thought these things, you would do something about it.
Yeah.
If you cared enough. You could think of it, but did you actually mean it? If you meant it, you would do something about it.
Yeah.
So, fuck you. Authorities went through the usual motions with Graham Cunningham's disappearance, but this time, something clicked within the task force that had been pursuing Salt Lake City's child killer since 1979. They suddenly realized, hey, that Roger Downs name is familiar.
Yeah, he's been here every time.
Wow, he's been interrogated after each of all 5 of the unsolved vanishing acts. And, bonus, he had also lived in close proximity to 4 of the victims.
Wow.
And was known, of course, to the parents of the 5th.
Oh, maybe we should look more into this.
Yep. Sergeant Bruce White and Detective Stephen Smith went back to question this Downs character again. They had no evidence against him, but there was something in his manner that suggested evasion. So the detective brain suddenly flipped on a little bit.
Finally, jeez.
Yeah, it's only been 4 years, you know. Veteran homicide let's see. After brief preliminaries, Downs accepted an invitation to police headquarters. That's when veteran homicide detective Don Bell slowly and surely began to pick apart Arthur's story for the day of Graham's disappearance. Soon, Bell had his actual real name, Arthur Gary Bishop, and by sundown, Arthur had confessed to 5 murders spanning 4 years.
Wow.
So Don Bell knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he is. You know, Don Bell's really a familiar name.
Doesn't that sound familiar? I think he might have been a big deal in
Did
Salt Lake Police for a while.
I'm wondering about Rachel Runyon. I'm just gonna check really fast.
Yeah, he might have been very much involved, or he might have.
I feel like
consulted.
his name might have been mentioned. Yeah.
But he's the murder guy for Salt Lake during the 80s. But Rachel Runyon, of course, was up in the Ogden area.
Yeah, I feel like he might have consulted.
So, you're Googling it real quick?
Yeah, just really fast.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because it has been bothering me the whole time.
It's all good. Yeah, and he might have been the guy who disconnected the Rachel Runyon and these 5 boys' murders. So, that's a very serious consideration. Are we seeing anything?
You can keep talking.
Okay.
I'm listening, and I'll let you know what I find.
All right, so the morning after his confession, Arthur led police to the remains of his victims. 3 sets of skeletal remains near Cedar Fort, and 2 more recent corpses near Big Cottonwood Creek. At first, he was ambiguous about the motive for his murders, claiming he killed only those molestation victims who threatened to report him.
Yeah, sure.
But later admitting the thrill that he derived from murder itself. In either case, The crimes were compulsive. He said, "I'm glad they caught me because I would do it again."
Mm-hmm.
After the public announcement of Arthur's arrest and confession, police were swamped with calls from parents who accused Bishop of molesting their children or the children of acquaintances over the past decade. Hundreds of them had flown in. In a stunning display of victim blaming, this is good, Detective Captain John Pollet told the Salt Lake Tribune this stunning sentence. "What I'd like to know is where these people were 2 and 3 years ago when we had nothing on this case." Yeah, so it's definitely the victim's fault for not coming forward. Fuck you guys. They're such monsters. These cops, they're being defensive because they didn't catch him, and then blaming the people who were victims that they didn't catch him.
That's so stupid.
It's the shittiest thing to say. A search of Arthur's residence provided evidence to substantiate his confession. Police retrieved a .38 caliber revolver, a blood-stained mallet and hammer, and a cache of child pornography.
Mm-hmm.
A book recovered from his home was titled 100 Ways to Disappear and Live Free, told investigators that Arthur had studied for his role as a fugitive from justice. Arthur Bishop was charged with 5 counts of capital murder, 5 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts of forcible sexual assault, and 1 count of sexually abusing a minor. The latter charges only applied to his most recent victims in cases where forensic evidence of sexual assault was still available. Mm-hmm. Deputy County Attorney Robert Stott described Arthur in an interview with the Salt Lake Tribune as a ruthless killer and sexual deviant possessed of a scheming, calculating, cunning mind. Bishop, meanwhile, in his statements to police, made the crimes sound terribly simple. As Detective Bell later recalled, quoted in the Deseret News, Bishop told him, "You can offer children anything and they'll go with you."
Wow.
Yeah. Arthur was still awaiting trial in Salt Lake City when he learned that his sibling, Douglas Bishop, had been jailed for sexually abusing young boys in the Provo area.
Ugh.
Their crimes were apparently unrelated, with nothing to suggest that the brothers had ever shared victims, but the news still prompted speculation about their backgrounds and the source of their criminal urges. That
that makes me think maybe something was going
on in the home. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's not unusual for the sexual assault victim, if these 2 brothers were sexually assaulted, to not say anything about it.
Oh, yeah.
They'd be embarrassed.
I want to bring it back just a little bit to Don Bell.
Yes.
I guess he had a hand in the Elizabeth Smart case.
Oh, really? Wow.
And without going into details, I am seeing some interesting stuff on here. Maybe we should just do a Don Bell episode.
All right, we could do a Don Bell episode sometime.
Okay. Anyways.
That's fun. I wonder if is he still around? He's still, as far as you can tell.
I don't know if he's alive still.
Okay.
He was alive in 2003 though.
Yeah, during the Elizabeth Smart stuff.
And something else very interesting that I'll tell you about later.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, that's a good teaser for a future episode. Maybe that should be your episode in April.
Good idea.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Okay. So, Bishop's confession had granted him a life behind bars, of course, but his defense angled for manslaughter charges rather than first-degree murder, which is their job as defense attorneys.
Yeah.
Arguing that Bishop's emotional and psychological deficits drove him to kill. His defense team lead is quoted as saying, "Arthur became, for some reason, stuck or fixated with sexual attraction to little boys. He never outgrew these erotic feelings. He was a lonely, frightened child."
Mm-hmm.
And one of the culprits, they decided, was the notable, easy target of pornography.
Oh, that's so stupid.
Yes, let's blame child pornography. Yeah, you can.
Well, yeah,
blame. But they're gonna blame regular pornography, like
fucking Ted Bundy. Again.
Yeah, exactly.
Just teach your kids about sexuality.
Yeah.
Teach your kids how to be healthy with their sexuality.
Exactly, and then no one will get murdered, presumably, unless it's for other reasons.
Yeah.
And an expert witness on the subject, Dr. Victor Klein, was called by the defense to testify that porn had warped Bishop's mind to the extent that he could not resist his attraction to children or the killing urges that followed. Is that true with every porn user? I think not.
No.
I don't think he can blame porn for this. I think he can blame Arthur for this.
Yeah.
It's a tune familiar from Ted Bundy's 11th Hour manipulative confessions in 1979, trumpeted by conservative Christians in their campaign to quote-unquote clean up America. Bishop said, For me, seeing pornography was like lighting a fuse on a stick of dynamite. I became stimulated and had to gratify my urges and explode. If pornographic material would have been unavailable to me in my early stages, it is most probable that my sexual activities would not have escalated to the degree they did. Which, in legal terms, is total bullshit and a terrible excuse for the actions of a horrible monster.
Horrible.
Yeah, so, with or without the pornography blame game, the jury of 5 men and 7 women convicted him on 5 counts of capital murder.
Good. Interesting jury. Cool.
Yep,
though.
5 men, 7 women.
Awesome.
5 counts of capital murder, 5 counts of aggravated kidnapping, and 1 count of sexually abusing a minor. Only portions of Bishop's taped confession had been played in court during the guilt phases of his trial, but jurors heard it all during the penalty phase. They listened as Bishop giggled and sometimes lapsed into a falsetto voice to mimic the boy's dying plea for mercy.
Ew.
It was no surprise that the panel recommended execution. State law gave Bishop the choice between execution by firing squad or lethal injection, and without a second thought, he chose the needle. So, prison life for Arthur Bishop, would you imagine it was, like, super great?
No. I mean, there's a reputation that pedophiles aren't exactly treated well there.
Yes. There were rumors of a prison bounty on the head of child killer Arthur Bishop at Utah State Prison in Draper. But there were actually no attempts on his life of either of the Bishop brothers. The other Bishop brother was also there from his charges in Provo.
Wow. We live pretty close to that.
We do. Sandy and Provo are neighbors.
I sometimes am like... It's just weird. It's interesting.
It freaks you out
to hear about all these people and they're like, oh yeah, they're just in Draper. Like,
yeah, think like Mark Hoffman, the guy who went on a bombing campaign in downtown Salt Lake City. He's just there.
Yeah.
To this day, he's just chilling there. It's crazy.
That's crazy.
Anyway, their status as quote unquote short eyes or child molesters made them outcasts within the prison's indistinguished population. So that's interesting term, short eyes.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is, but okay. I mean...
Interesting.
Yeah. Alright, so here's another fun bit. While in prison, Arthur drove back into Mormonism, the religion of his youth. With great sadness and remorse, he said, I realize I allowed myself to be misled by Satan. Yeah, blame Satan. That's a good idea. Prison psychologist Al Carlisle told reporters that Bishop seemed to be a new man. He had read the Book of Mormon 10 times cover to cover during his 4 years in prison.
You know who else was a pedophile?
Oh, yeah.
Joseph Smith.
Shh. Don't tell no one that. Okay, yeah. And it's like, of course he read the Book of Mormon 10 times cover to cover when he was in prison. There's nothing else to do.
Yeah, that's not impressive.
He would use TV headphones to shield himself from the profanity of his fellow inmates. Like, you murdered children.
What an asshole.
You murdered children, but you can't hear someone...
them.
Yeah, raped and murdered children, but you can't hear someone say a naughty word while you're in prison for murder. Fuck you. I hope he can hear this.
But we know so many people that are like that.
Yes, we do. Total monsters, but if you say one naughty word, you're the monster suddenly. Arthur feared his impulses would come back someday if he were freed. According to psychologist Al Carlisle, he believed he would be going into the spirit world and that it would be more peaceful for him there when he was executed.
Good.
He doesn't believe he's been forgiven. He believed he could continue to work on the other side on these problems. To this point, Arthur had told his keepers that he was anxious and ready to die. There is a reason why Utah allows its condemned prisoners a choice of death by firing squad. It's an artifact of the early days of the Mormon Church when, in the 1850s, leaders Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball preached a doctrine of strict blood atonement.
Oh my God.
In this tenet of the religion, sinners could show repentance best by spilling of their own blood, and if they failed to do so, other members of the Mormon Church might be required to help. Yeah, to go and commit murder. Lethal injection, as it is a bloodless injection method, does not fit the requirements of a blood atonement. This doctrine is technically ignored today, except by extremists like Ervil Mormon Manson LeBaron, the mass-murdering polygamous cult leader, who we will be covering in a later episode. but its trace lingers on Utah's provision for death by firing squad.
Wait, he chose firing squad?
He chose lethal injection.
Yeah,
which
okay,
is interesting because he didn't.
Yeah,
it doesn't,
he said injection.
because the church doesn't.
Fit.
The church doesn't officially avow blood atonement anymore. But like they still like it. Don't tell anyone. 2-time killer Garrett Gilmore, who I will be doing an episode on later.
Mm-hmm.
What a trip this guy was. He chose the firing squad in 1977, and he was actually the first one to be executed after the 10-year stay on execution.
Yep.
As did John Albert Taylor in 1996, and Ronnie Lee Gardner, who again I will be doing an episode on, did in 2010. He was actually the most recent one.
Interesting.
Don Lafferty, who was another polygamous cult leader who was involved in murder schemes, was scheduled to be killed by
but
execution.
He just passed away.
Yes, he was scheduled for this summer, but he passed away from natural causes before he could be executed by firing squad.
Too good for him.
Seriously. So, newly devout Arthur Bishop, however, stood very fast on his choice of lethal execution. Arthur Bishop kept his date with the needle and died by execution on June 10th, 1988. So, sorry about the little cliffhanger that I left you on as to whether he's dead or not.
I'm glad he's dead.
Yeah, he's a person that doesn't have any place in this society. Mm-hmm. And while I personally can't speak to the value of capital punishment, I can't say that I'm sad that he's gone.
Yeah.
So, there's that. So that's the story of Arthur Gary Bishop.
That's fucked up.
Really fucked up.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I feel like the puppies, in some ways, was another level. But, like, yikes. There's nothing about this case that's good. There's just a lot of instances where the institutions just failed to do their job to protect.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Literal children. Whether it was Big Brother, Big Sister, whether it was the Mormon Church, whether it was the Salt Lake Police Department, so many people had to drop balls everywhere to let this guy keep going after murder after murder after murder. And none of it worked. And it was probably just an unhealthy combination of all of them. We know that hundreds of parents came forward after he was arrested to say, hey, this kid had molested my kids. I bet some of those parents had reported him to police.
Yeah.
And police hadn't done anything. Or they reported him to the Mormon Church, which is really dumb.
Yeah, that is a big thing, too.
That happens a lot.
Here in Utah, instead of going directly to police, because especially if it's your neighbor or somebody that you're close to,
someone in the world,
or you don't know exactly what happened, you go to your bishop instead.
And bishops are not police, and they have...
Bishops don't have any training.
They
don't have any training.
They don't have psychological
counseling. They don't...
So
it's just like your dentist is telling you not to report that your child was molested. Like, what would you do if your dentist told you that? You'd probably fucking go to the police, right?
Yeah.
But not in Utah. You just listen to your fucking dentist and don't go to the police.
Yeah, because it would look bad on the church if a bishop was molesting children. But it happens all the time anyway, so I don't know why they don't just get with the program.
Or just any member.
Anyway, so.
That's so fucking stupid. I'm pissed off now. I'm Valerie.
And I'm Jack.
This is Below the Salt.